The SSO token can be integrated inside an email action to authenticate a user into an application with a single click of a button. Before we get started with the example workflow, let's take a look at the SSO token and how it works. SSO tokens are added to email actions attached to a form. The form will typically contain an email field that allows users to submit the form containing their email address. Once submitted, the email action will interpolate the submitted data of the email field and send an email accordingly. After the form is submitted, the token uses the interpolated data of the email field to perform a lookup. The lookup field is based on the data of the property name configured within the token. The token's search location is determined by the resource specified in the token parameters. So for this example, the token will look up the data of the email field saved within the user resource. A token is generated only when the email address of the recipient matches an entry within the specified resource. Email SSO tokens are commonly used for things like reset password or user registration workflows. This example, however, will detail how to use SSO tokens to authenticate a manager user to review and approve employee expense reports. There's a couple things we need to do before we configure our SSO tokens. The first one being configuring and creating a role and resource for our managers. Click the Access tab of your project and click the New Role button and create a role called Manager. Next, we'll create a resource called Manager. We'll add an email address to this resource and a password. Create the resource. Next, we need to add a role assignment action to the resource, which will be configured for the manager role. This action will ensure that every submission made against this resource will contain the manager role. We'll go ahead and create our manager, manager@example.com. Password will be ABC123. The user resource will be used to create the employees that will be submitting the expense report. This resource is created by default with the project and already has an action in place to assign the authenticated role to users submitted against this resource. So we'll go ahead and create our user. And we'll call this user employee@example.com and then ABC123 for the password. Next, let's create an expense report form the employees will submit for the managers to review. I'm importing a pre-configured form found within the help documentation for the SSO email token. However, you can create your own form. We just need to ensure that the API path name of the form is expense report. Create the form. Next, we'll click the Access tab for this form and set the authenticated role to the Create Own Submission permission. This will ensure that our employee users can submit the form. Next, set the manager role to the Read All submission, as well as the Update All submission. This will ensure our managers can view and update all submissions made against the form. Next, add an email action to the form, which will fire off an email to the manager whenever the form is submitted. This email will contain the SSO token link required to authenticate the manager into the application, allowing the manager to review the expense request. I've already set up an email transport in my project. You'll need to do the same for this workflow. We'll set the to email address to the email submitted against the manager resource, which was manager@example.com. Scroll down to the message field. This is where we'll apply the SSO token. Before configuring the token, however, I'm going to input some HTML to add a button that will contain the SSO token link. Here we have our button, and then inside that button, we'll have a review expense report text. Next, I will add my application domain. For this example, we're using Form.IO Pro. Then we'll add the token. And finally, we will add the form endpoint for the expense report form, which will grab the submission ID and allow us to be editing the submission as the manager when we click the SSO token link. So to summarize, the SSO token will be contained within the button called Review Expense Report. The SSO link will be launched to the Form.IO Pro application domain. The token will then search within the manager resource and try to find a record that matches the email data set within the action. This data will be searched within my project domain. If a match is found, a special JWT token will be generated, allowing my manager to open the expense report submission in edit mode when the link is clicked. We'll save the action and let's test out the workflow. I'm going to click this launch tab for the expense report form, which will launch the form within the Form.IO Pro application. I'm going to fill out my employee user credentials. And we'll go ahead and fill this form out real quick. All right, make a submission. And we'll go ahead and log out here. My manager should receive an email containing the submission information, as well as the button containing the SSO link. Once I click the link, the SSO token verifies my email information against the manager resource, and I am authenticated to view and update the submission based on my manager role. We can look within our console to verify our credentials. If I click here, we can see that I am logged in as the manager. I can view the submission and submit the expense report. Visit our help documentation at help.form.io, linked in the description of this video for more information. Thanks for watching.